At first glance, the girl didn't seem like she belonged. In a weathered hoodie, scuffed sneakers, and clutching a worn manila envelope, 15-year-old Jayla Morgan stepped into Liberty National Bank in downtown Atlanta. No one expected her to be making a transaction worth noticing. But she wasn't there to cash a birthday check or open a student account. Jayla was carrying $500,000. The money wasn't a fluke or a mistake. It was the first installment of her inheritance from her late grandmother, Grace Thompson, one of the most influential black women in American finance. But no one in the building knew that. Not yet. As Jayla stepped up to the teller line, the clerk behind the glass window gave her a once-over, skepticism painted across her face. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" she asked, her tone sweetly dismissive. "This isn't a currency exchange." The room stilled. Conversations dimmed to whispers. A security guard edged closer. A man in a tailored suit raised an eyebrow. They didn't see a teenage girl mourning her grandmother. They saw a black girl in a hoodie, and in their eyes, she didn't belong. But they were wrong. Jayla joined the line without a word. She sat where she was directed, beside the large window overlooking the city's sunlit streets. The bank's security guard, a white man in his 50s with stiff posture and cold eyes, stationed himself nearby. Behind the counter sat Carol Benson, a woman in her mid-40s with a meticulously styled bob and an expression carved from marble. Her glance barely lingered on Jayla before she turned to her keyboard. "Sweetheart, we don't process birthday cards here," she said without looking up. Jayla's fingers gripped the envelope. "I didn't bring a card. I brought a check." Carol blinked, looked up, and arched an eyebrow. "Real money?" Jayla nodded and retrieved the brown leather envelope from her backpack. Inside were a $500,000 check and notarized inheritance papers. Carol took the envelope like it might stain her hands. "How old are you?" 15, Jayla said. Carol smirked. "Where did the money come from?" "A sugar daddy." The security guard stiffened again. Jayla swallowed the lump in her throat. "My grandmother passed away last week. This is part of her estate." She handed over identification, legal documents, and a formal letter from Thompson and Gale attorneys. Carol took the file but barely glanced at it. Her gaze lingered on Jayla, filled with something like disdain. "Sit there," she said, gesturing coldly toward a metal chair in the corner. "We need to verify." Jayla sat under the blinking red eye of a security camera. The envelope was gone. Carol had taken it into an inner office without so much as a receipt. Minutes stretched. 20 passed. People came and went. Jayla remained. The air conditioning no longer cooled the room. It felt thick with suspicion. Jayla tapped her phone. An email from Thompson and Gale glowed on the screen. Confirmation of inheritance, Jayla Morgan. She waited, silent, still, until the door opened. Carol stepped out, her face expressionless. She nodded to the guard. "Bring her," she said. The guard approached. "Come with me. The manager wants to see you." Jayla followed him down a hallway and into a small office. Behind the desk sat a man with thinning hair and a tired face. His nameplate read, Greg Matthews, branch manager. "Miss Morgan," he began, "we've reviewed the documents, but this is a substantial deposit, and per policy, further verification is required." Jayla frowned. "So leaving me out there like I was shoplifting is part of the process?" Greg sighed. "There have been fraud cases. We have to be cautious." Jayla opened her email again. "Everything is in here. Verified. Stamped." Greg glanced over the email. "You have to understand." She interrupted, her voice sharp but steady. "If I were white, wearing a skirt and holding a latte, would you have served me faster?" Greg said nothing. Jayla took a breath. "My name is Jayla. I'm not here for a loan or a favor. I'm here to deposit my inheritance." Finally, Greg nodded. "We'll process it immediately. I apologize." Jayla left the office, not triumphant but exhausted. At the teller desk, Carol didn't speak, just handed her papers to another clerk, who processed the transaction without a word. As Jayla walked out, whispers followed. One woman murmured, "They'll let anyone pretend to be rich now." Jayla didn't flinch. A boy aimed his phone toward her, probably thinking of TikTok. Still, she kept walking. Then a voice cut through the tension. "Jayla?" "Jayla Morgan." A man in a janitor's uniform stood beside his cart. His dark skin was weathered, his eyes bright. "I knew it," he said, smiling wide. "You're Grace Thompson's granddaughter." The lobby froze. "I remember you. You used to sit here with a book while your grandmother signed papers upstairs." Jayla nodded. "Uncle Reggie?" He laughed. "That's me." Then, louder, "This is Jayla Morgan." Grace Thompson's heir. She owns a stake in this bank. Gasps rippled through the room. Greg Matthews emerged, pale. Wait. Her. Reggie nodded. She's not just a client. She's the next in line. Greg snatched her file from the clerk's hand. Jayla E. Morgan, sole beneficiary. Thompson Family Trust, controlling interest in Liberty National Holdings. He turned to Carol. Why wasn't this flagged for VIP onboarding? Carol stammered. I didn't verify. Greg's face tightened. She's our principal heir, Carol. You ignored protocol. Carol stepped back as two men in dark suits entered. Carol Benson, one said. Internal audit. Please come with us. She paled. What? Why? Greg stepped forward. Not your first infraction. And now we have to make this right. As Carol was escorted out, Jayla said calmly, I don't hate you. I just wish you had made a different choice. Greg returned to the conference room. Ms. Morgan, we owe you more than an apology. Jayla said nothing. I'd like to invite you to complete your onboarding on the VIP floor, he said. Jayla pulled a folded letter from her bag. My grandmother wrote this before she passed, she said, sliding it to him. Inside was her decision to allocate 10% of her total assets to a scholarship fund in Grace Thompson's name for underprivileged students. Greg blinked. That's over $100 million. Jayla nodded. Money can't fix everything, but it can open doors. The story spread fast. A local reporter captured Jayla leaving the bank, head high, holding the fund papers. The headline the next morning read, Teenage heiress donates millions to fight inequality. Later, Reggie texted her a photo, a sign above the teller desk. From today, all customers are equal. No exceptions. Jayla left the bank with no check, just the scholarship charter in her hand. The Opal Grace Legacy Fund. Outside, a boy watched her from the sidewalk. One day, he whispered to his mom, I want to be like her. His mother smiled. You will, baby. And the world better be ready. Jayla turned, smiled at them, and walked on. Not to escape, but to lead. Because power isn't about having control. It's about using it to lift others up. That day, Jayla Morgan didn't just make a deposit. She changed the system.